They left me and my 6-year-old daughter stranded at the airport with my own money. And somehow, they still think I should forgive them. I used to believe that no matter what, family was family. That even if they were unfair, even if they took me for granted, deep down, they still loved me. But standing in that airport, holding my daughter's tiny hand as she looked up at me with confusion in her eyes, I finally understood. I was never their son. I was just their paycheck. For years, I let them use me. When my wife, Amelia, passed away 3 years ago, I was drowning in grief and struggling to raise our daughter alone. They weren't there for me. But when I became successful, suddenly, they were back, acting like the loving family I had always wished for. So when they suggested a family vacation, I thought maybe, just maybe, this was their way of making things right. I paid for everything. And yet, they left us behind. I've endured years of favoritism and selfishness, but this was the moment I finally broke. Am I wrong for walking away for good? This is a real post from our /True Off My Chest, where people share their most personal and emotional stories. Sometimes, family isn't the people you're born to. It's the people who truly stand by you. Love isn't just a word. It's shown through actions, through loyalty, through being there when it matters most. Before we dive into the full story, if you enjoy real-life stories like this, make sure to subscribe to Reddit True Vault. Your support helps bring more incredible stories to life. Now, let me tell you how it all happened. I guess I should start from the beginning. Maybe if you understand my family, you'll see why I should have seen this coming. My name is Lucas. I'm 35, a single dad to my amazing daughter Emily, and for most of my life, I've been the afterthought in my own family. My parents, Robert and Linda, have always had a clear favorite, my younger sister, Olivia. If you grew up with a golden child in the family, you probably already know how this goes. I was the kid who worked hard, got good grades, followed the rules. But no matter what I did, it was never quite enough. Meanwhile, Olivia could do the bare minimum and still be showered with praise. I remember coming home once with a perfect score on a difficult math test, expecting maybe a little bit of excitement. My mom glanced at the paper, nodded, and said, "Good job, Lucas." That was it. No celebration, no extra acknowledgement. But when Olivia managed to scrape by with a passing grade on a different test, one that wasn't even that hard, my parents acted like she'd just won an Olympic medal. She's so smart, such a bright girl. My dad even took her out for ice cream to reward her hard work. I stood there, watching them walk out the door, holding my perfect test score in my hands, wondering why I even bothered. This pattern continued into adulthood. When I got married to Amelia, my parents didn't seem to care much. We had a small ceremony, nothing fancy, just a simple gathering with close friends. My parents attended, but it felt like an obligation rather than something they were excited about. But when Olivia got engaged a few years later, my parents went all out. They covered the entire cost of her extravagant wedding. Venue, catering, decorations, the whole thing. They acted like it was the most important event of their lives. My mom cried when Olivia walked down the aisle. My dad gave this heartfelt speech about how proud he was of his little girl. I sat there, listening to it all, and realized he never once gave a speech like that for me. Then Amelia died, and whatever scraps of support I had from my family disappeared completely. Losing my wife was like having the ground ripped out from under me. One day, we were planning Emily's 3rd birthday. The next, I was sitting in a hospital room, holding Amelia's hand as she took her last breath. I don't remember much from those first few months after. It was a blur of grief, exhaustion, and trying to figure out how to be a father and mother to Emily at the same time. My family came to the funeral, sure. But after that, nothing. No real support. No offers to help with Emily. No "how are you holding up" calls. My mom would check in once every few weeks, but the conversations were always short, awkward, and superficial. She never once asked if I needed help. Not once. I struggled hard. I was running a business while trying to take care of a toddler who couldn't understand why her mom wasn't coming home. There were nights I'd fall asleep at my desk, waking up to find Emily curled up next to me, clutching her stuffed bunny. And my family, they weren't there. But then, something changed. My business took off. After years of grinding, of sleepless nights, of pouring everything I had into making it work, I finally started making good money. And suddenly, my family remembered I existed. It started small. My mom would call more often, telling me how much she missed me and how we shouldn't drift apart. Then, she'd casually mention how hard things were financially. A broken water heater, a high electricity bill. Little things that I didn't mind helping with. They were my parents, after all. Then Olivia started calling, too. She'd vent about how expensive raising her son was, how hard life had been since her divorce. I felt bad for her. She was my sister. So I helped. I started covering Jake's daycare fees, then her car payments, then her phone bill. Somewhere along the way, it just became expected. My mom stopped asking for help. She'd just send me her monthly expenses as if it was my duty to cover them. Olivia would call me in tears, saying she couldn't pay rent, then post pictures on social media of her latest shopping spree. My dad would lecture me about how family takes care of each other whenever I hesitated. I became their personal ATM. And the worst part? I let it happen. I wanted to believe that helping them would make them see me differently. That maybe, just maybe, they'd finally treat me like family. But I was wrong, because the moment I needed them, they were nowhere to be found. And the moment I stopped giving, they showed me exactly what I meant to them. Before we continue, if you enjoy real-life stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit True Vault. Your support helps bring more incredible stories to life. Now, let me tell you about the moment everything finally fell apart. I wanted to believe them. I really did. When my mom first brought up the idea of a family vacation, I actually thought, maybe, just maybe, this could be the start of something different. A fresh start. She called me one evening, her voice unusually warm. "Lucas, I've been thinking. Emily needs to feel the love of her family. She deserves to grow up knowing she has people who care about her." For a second, my heart clenched. Because as much as I resented them for the way they treated me over the years, I still wanted my daughter to have the family I never did. I wanted her to experience that unconditional love, the feeling of belonging. So when my mom suggested a big family trip, a chance to reconnect, I let myself believe it. Maybe they were finally trying. Maybe they actually wanted to make things right. I was wrong. The plan was simple: a week at a beautiful beach resort. Sun, sand, family time. They had already found the perfect place, my mom assured me. All I needed to do was cover the cost. The price tag? $10,000. Flights, hotel, excursions. It was a lot, but I could afford it. And for Emily? I would have paid twice that. I should have noticed the red flags earlier. Every time I asked about the details, what airline we were flying, what time we needed to be at the airport, my mom would wave it off. "Oh, don't stress about that, honey. Just be there 2 hours before departure, and we'll handle everything." Olivia, of course, had no problem bragging about all the shopping she was doing for the trip. New swimsuits, spa reservations, a yacht tour she was so excited about. But whenever I casually brought up the flight details, she'd suddenly go silent or change the subject. Looking back, I should have known. Sarah, Emily's nanny, had a bad feeling from the start. She never said it outright, but I could see it in the way she hesitated whenever I mentioned the trip. One night, while Emily was packing her tiny pink suitcase for the 100th time, Sarah gave me a look, the kind that said, "Are you sure about this?" I brushed it off. Of course I trusted them. They were my family, right? Still, something felt off. Every time I asked about the itinerary, my mom changed the subject. Olivia wouldn't give me a straight answer about the flight, but I ignored all the red flags. I wanted to believe this trip was about making things right. Emily was so excited that morning. She woke up before the alarm, already dressed in her favorite mermaid swimsuit under her clothes. As we drove to the airport, she kept talking about all the sandcastles she and Olivia were going to build together. I smiled and told her it would be amazing. I wish I could go back and shake myself. We got to the airport 2 hours early, just like they told me. Walked up to the check-in counter, handed over my ID, and waited for our boarding passes. The agent frowned, typed something, typed again. Then she looked up and said, "I don't see a reservation under this name." My stomach dropped. I told her to check again. Maybe it was under my mom's name. Olivia's. Nothing. No flights. No tickets. Emily tugged at my sleeve. "Daddy, what's wrong?" I still remember the way my hands shook as I pulled out my phone and called my mom. She answered on the third ring. Cheerful. Too cheerful. And then I heard it in the background. Waves. Laughter. Music. They were already there. That's when I knew. They never planned for me to come. They never wanted to reconnect. They just wanted my money. Emily's tiny voice broke through the numbness. "Daddy, they left without us." I couldn't speak. Couldn't even process it. My mom kept talking, completely unfazed. "Oh, honey, didn't you get my message? There was a mix-up with the flights. We had to leave earlier than planned." Like it was nothing. Like she hadn't just abandoned us at an airport with my own money. I don't even remember what I said before I hung up. Maybe nothing at all. I just stood there, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white, while Emily clung to my side. And then she whispered, "They don't love us, do they?" That was it. The final blow. I knelt down and pulled her into my arms. And for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Before we continue, if you like real stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Reddit True Vault. Your support helps us bring more stories to life, because this was just the beginning. I don't remember leaving the airport. I don't remember walking to the car, strapping Emily into her seat, or even driving away. All I remember is sitting in a cafe across from my daughter, staring blankly at my untouched coffee, while she stirred her hot chocolate in slow, absent-minded circles. She wasn't crying anymore. That almost made it worse. Emily had always been so full of life, always humming, always bouncing on her feet. But now, she just sat there, silent, defeated, and I thought to myself, how the hell did I let it get this far? How many times had I let them take advantage of me? How many times had I told myself it was fine because they're family? I felt stupid, weak. My phone buzzed. "Sarah," I answered on the second ring, not trusting myself to speak. "I knew it," she said. I let out a breath, shaky and exhausted. "They left us." "I know," she said, voice tight with anger. "What are you going to do about it?" And that was the moment something inside me snapped. I didn't go home. I parked outside a quiet coffee shop, pulled out my laptop, and started canceling everything. First, the $2,000 monthly transfer to my mom. Gone. Then, Olivia's rent payments. The tuition for my nephew's school. The car insurance I'd been covering just for a little while. Next came the smaller things. Netflix, canceled Spotify, logged out, phone plans, disconnected. They had been living off of me for years, and they never even bothered to hide it. They planned a vacation with my money. They abandoned me and my daughter at an airport, and they expected me to keep paying for their lives? Not anymore. The messages started rolling in almost instantly. "Mom, Lucas, there's something wrong with the bank transfer. Can you check?" "Olivia, hey, did you forget to pay my rent? The landlord just called me." Then the panic set in. "Mom, Lucas, I don't know what's going on, but you need to call me now." "Olivia, are you seriously doing this right now?" I turned my phone off. Emily was still quiet when I got back to the car. She looked up, her big blue eyes searching my face. "What now, Daddy?" I thought about it for a long moment. Then I smiled. "How do you feel about Disneyland?" For the first time that day, her whole face lit up. Really, we booked the flights right there in the car. First class. Because why the hell not?" For the next 5 days, it was just me and Emily. No stress, no guilt, no feeling like I owed anyone anything. She got to meet every Disney princess, ride every roller coaster she was tall enough for, and eat way too much cotton candy. And I got to see my daughter happy again. But even with all the laughter, even with her excitement, I knew the truth. That pain, the realization that the people who were supposed to love her had left her behind, was still there. And maybe it always would be. But at least now, she knew she still had me. And that was enough. I turned my phone back on after a few days. Big mistake. My notifications exploded the second the screen lit up. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, emails. At first, the messages were just confused. "Lucas, the bank says there's an issue with the transfer. Hey, I think something's wrong with my rent payment." It bounced. "Can you fix it?" Then, the panic set in. The texts turned frantic. Missed calls stacked up. My voicemail was full of messages from my mother, my sister, even my dad, who rarely ever called. Then came the threats. "You can't just stop paying without warning. You're punishing your own family. This is cruel, Lucas. Olivia could lose custody of Jake because of you." I read them all in silence. Then I put my phone down. I wasn't going to explain myself. And then, my mother took it public. I had spent my entire life walking on eggshells around these people, giving them everything they asked for, letting them take and take until there was nothing left of me except guilt and obligation. And the second I said no, they turned on me like I was the villain. I shut my phone off again. The lawyer call came 2 days later. Some stiff-sounding guy claiming to represent my parents. Something about how I had an established pattern of financial support, and how cutting them off without notice had caused significant distress. I almost laughed. "So let me get this straight," I said. "They're trying to legally force me to keep paying their bills?" A pause. Then, "We'd prefer to resolve this amicably." I hung up. Then came the Facebook post. I only found out about it because Sarah texted me. "Your mom is playing the victim online. You might want to see this." I clicked the link. Nothing in this world is more painful than being abandoned by your own child. After everything we've done for him, after all the love we've given, he has turned his back on his family. In our time of need, he has left us with nothing. My heart is broken. There were hundreds of comments. Relatives, old family friends, strangers. I can't believe Lucas would do this to you. Disgusting. A son should take care of his mother. I hope he realizes what he's done before it's too late. I took a deep breath. Then I opened my laptop, and I posted my own truth. My mother conveniently left out a few details in her post. So let me fill in the blanks for you. For 5 years, I have been paying their mortgage, their utilities, their car payments. I have been covering Olivia's rent, her son's daycare, her groceries. Every month, I sent them money without question. And how did they repay me? I attached a screenshot of my bank statements. Then the kicker, they invited me and my 6-year-old daughter on a family vacation. I paid for it. And then, when the day came, they left us stranded at the airport without a word. I attached a screenshot of the text messages. I didn't check the response right away. I shut my laptop and took Emily out for ice cream. But when I came back, it had exploded. Mom's post was flooded with people calling her out. Wait, you left him and his daughter behind? After he paid for the trip? You took his money and then abandoned him? And now you want more? You just destroyed your own reputation, lady. Some of my relatives even reached out privately. I had no idea it was this bad. Lucas, I'm so sorry. Others, they doubled down. Mom, how could you humiliate me like this? Olivia, you're making a huge mistake. Ron, you just ruined this family. Hope you're happy. I blocked them all. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of their anger. I was free. I used to think that no matter how flawed, family was still family. That deep down, they would always be there when it really mattered. But I was wrong. After everything, my mother finally reached out. Not to apologize for what she did, at least, not in a way that mattered. She sent me a message on Facebook, the only way she could reach me since I had blocked her number. Lucas, I know we've made mistakes, but we're family. Please, let's talk. I stared at the message for a long time. Maybe in the past, I would have agonized over it, wondering if I should reply. But now, I saw it for what it was. Another attempt to pull me back in, to test if I still had any cracks left. I didn't even open it. I just deleted it. Because here's the thing. Some wounds don't heal with time. Some betrayals are too deep to simply move on from. And I refuse to spend another second of my life proving my worth to people who never valued me in the first place. I didn't have to wonder what happened to them. People talk. And when you cut off a financial lifeline that a family has been sucking dry for years, it doesn't take long for the consequences to start piling up. It started small. A distant cousin, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, reached out to check in and casually mentioned that my parents were struggling to keep up with their mortgage. A few days later, an old neighbor sent me a message saying she saw my mother at the grocery store, ranting about how some people abandon their family after they've made it big. I ignored it all. But then I got a call from an unexpected source, my aunt, my dad's sister. We hadn't spoken much over the years, mostly because my parents had always painted her as the selfish one, the bad sibling who only looked out for herself. Turns out, she had been the only one in the family with real boundaries. Lucas, I know you don't owe them anything, but you should know, it's getting bad. She told me that without my money, my parents had fallen behind on their mortgage almost immediately. They tried to borrow from relatives, but after everything came out, after my mother's Facebook meltdown and my public post exposing the truth, no one was willing to help them. They've burned too many bridges, my aunt said. People finally see them for who they are. Hearing that didn't bring me joy, just closure. A confirmation that walking away had been the right choice. But then she hesitated. It's Olivia, Lucas. She lost custody of her son. That made me pause, not because I felt bad for Olivia. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. But because I thought of my nephew, a little boy who had no say in any of this. She couldn't keep up with rent after you cut her off, my aunt explained. She missed a few court-mandated appointments, and her ex used it against her. The judge ruled in his favor. I let out a slow breath, rubbing my temple. My family had taken everything from me. My money, my trust, my peace of mind. And for what? So they could live beyond their means, pretending they were entitled to a lifestyle they never worked for. Now Olivia had lost the only thing that truly mattered, and my parents were scrambling to pick up the pieces of a life they had built on manipulation and lies. But that wasn't my burden to carry anymore. Instead, I focus on the one person who truly matters, Emily. She deserves more than what I had growing up. She deserves a father who will always be there, who will never make her feel like she has to earn love. So that's what I'm doing. Every single day, I pour all the love I was denied into her. I make sure she knows that she is enough, just as she is. I opened a savings account in her name, putting away every dollar that used to go to my family. Instead of funding their selfishness, I'm securing her future. I take her on trips where she is wanted, not tolerated. I celebrate her wins, no matter how small. I remind her, every single day, that she is loved. One day, maybe I'll find it in myself to forgive my family. But not today. Today, I'm learning to put myself first. And the love I never received, I'm making damn sure my daughter will have it in abundance. At the end of the day, family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, trust, and mutual care. Lucas spent years believing that if he gave enough, if he proved himself enough, his family would finally treat him with the love he deserved. But in the end, all they saw was a walking wallet. His decision to walk away wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming his dignity, his peace, and most importantly, his daughter's future. But what do you think? Was Lucas right to ignore his mother's final message? Should he have at least given them a chance to apologize? Or was cutting ties the only way to truly move on? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy real-life stories like this, don't forget to support Reddit True Vault, because every story deserves to be heard.